constituents, and we're grateful for it. House operations face many challenges, physical and cybersecurity, both here and in our districts, and attracting and retaining a highly skilled, diverse workforce and helping member offices adopt new technologies that allow all of us to communicate better with our constituents is so important. These challenges and many more require us to be constantly reevaluating what works and what doesn't, and to be always planning and prioritizing based on the highest value for the taxpayer and the greatest service for the member office. It's my intention to continue the tradition of this committee with bipartisan work on overseeing our House officers. I know Mr. Davis's staff and mine meet regularly with each of you on ongoing projects and initiatives, and I believe the House works better when more opinions are heard about how it should work. Our hearing this morning is the first of many to make sure that we are meeting our responsibilities as stewards of this great institution. Before we begin, I'd like to make a couple of comments about the men and women who work for the House officers and Inspector General. From the tally clerks to the security engineers, the protocol officers, and the financial statement auditors, this committee will focus on making sure that every institutional office of the House is a good place to work, where people are treated fairly and with respect. In the near future, we will restart our workplace rights training. I've reviewed every page of the curriculum, incorporating feedback from members and staff alike to make sure it works with our new House rules. We're also working with our vendor to find ways we can make the training more meaningful for managers and supervisors who are on the front lines of creating a welcoming workplace. I'd like now to recognize our ranking member, Mr. Davis, for any opening remarks that he may wish to make.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, and welcome to our officers. Before I begin, I'd like to take a minute, though, to recognize and honor the contributions made to the House by two individuals, Alan DeLuca and Mike Pratt. Both of these men were longtime employees of the CAO who recently passed away, and it is the tireless work ethic and steadfast commitment to service that Mike and Alan both demonstrated that make our jobs as members of Congress much easier. My deepest sympathies are extended to their families, and their friends, and all of their co-workers. The Chief Administrative Officer, Mr. Kiko, great to see you. Clerk and House Inspector General and their teams are collectively responsible, as we know, for the non-political operations of the House. They're tasked with authenticating the legislative process through the clerk's operation, managing the business processes that allow every office to function through the CAO's operation, ensuring every member, staffer, and visitor has a safe experience through the Sergeant-at-Arms administration, and then through the watchful eye of the Inspector General, their operation. All of those tasks and processes are reviewed to ensure that taxpayer dollars are spent wisely. All of you have laid out important priorities for the 116th Congress in your testimony, from modernizing the legislative information management system to improving physical security in district offices to enhancing cybersecurity for the House. It is clear your priorities are thoughtful and intended to improve House operations. There's a constant balance between the priorities of the institutional offices and the priorities of member offices who rely on their services to operate. The priorities of both are often in alignment, but at times there is a disconnect between what institutional offices think member offices need versus what they actually need. My overarching priorities for all that the four of you do can be broken into four areas. First, improving proactive communication with offices. Second, building a strong culture of service in all that you do. Third, instituting common sense processes and procedures. We don't need to make things overly bureaucratic just because we can. And finally, ensuring the House is getting a return on investment for the additional resources that you receive. With additional resources also come additional expectations. Thank you all for being here today. Look forward to working with you, continuing to work with each and every one of you. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Joining us today is Cheryl L. Johnson, the Clerk of the House. Ms. Johnson was sworn in as Clerk of the House on February 25th, 2019, and is the 36th individual to serve as our clerk. Paul D. Irving, Sergeant-at-Arms, was sworn in as Sergeant-at-Arms of the House of Representatives on January 17th, 2012. He is the 36th individual to serve as Sergeant-at-Arms, an office that goes back to the first Congress in 1789. He's the Chief Law Enforcement and Protocol Officer of the House and is responsible for maintaining order on the House side of the United States Capitol complex. Paul Kiko, who is the Chief Administrative Officer, was sworn in as Chief Administrative Officer of the House on August 1st, 2016. He's the 8th person to serve as CAO since the position was created in 1995. He's responsible for the information technology, financial, logistic, human resources, and procurement services provided to members and their staff. Michael Paczynski was appointed as the 5th Inspector General of the House on February 15, 2018. Prior to being appointed IG, he served in the IG's office as the Deputy Inspector General, Advisory and Administrative Services, and as the Director of the Management Advisory Services. It's my pleasure to welcome our witnesses to the committee this morning. Each of you will be recognized for 5 minutes, but your entire written statement will be made part of the record, so we encourage you to summarize it. As you know, we have a lighting system, and when you hit 4 minutes, the yellow light will show up. When it turns red, your time is up, and we'd ask you to try and to wrap up. So first, we will turn to you, Ms. Johnson, for your testimony, and welcome.
Good morning. Chairperson Lofgren, Ranking Member Davis, member of the committee. Thank you for this opportunity to testify about the priorities of the Office of the Clerk, and thank you for your guidance and support. The Clerk's Office is a nonpartisan organization integral to the legislative process. We provide the procedural assistance and support necessary for the orderly conduct of official business of the House, its members, and committees. I will use my time to outline our 4 key priorities for 2019 and beyond, starting with the Legislative Information Management System Modernization and Redevelopment Project, also known as LIMS. LIMS enables the House to conduct legislative business and enables the public to follow that business. It brings in bill information, floor activity, member and committee information, and executive communications from the House and Senate, and distributes that information to GPO, the Library of Congress, members, committees, House officers, and the public. However, LIMS was built more than 30 years ago and operates on an outdated programming language on a very old platform. The cost and technological risk of continuing this platform are high, as finding skilled developers to work on legacy platforms is difficult, and maintaining the current system demands significant resources. Migrating LIMS to a modern technology will allow it to be more flexible, to readily incorporate changes and accept new legislative requirements, while maintaining a high level of security to better meet the House needs. A second key priority is supporting committees. As part of our efforts to improve communications and strengthen relationships with House staff, we collaborated with the Parliamentarian and the CRS and Congressional Staff Academy to host a briefing in January for all committee clerks. The briefing provided new and veteran clerks with tools they need to do their jobs and included sessions on the legislative process. We plan to continue our training series throughout the year. In addition, our official reporters provide reporting services for all committee markups, hearings, and depositions, as well as for investigative interviews. These services are subject to increased demand given the expanded deposition authority and oversight needs. In fact, in the 3 short months of the 116th Congress, our official reporters have supported more than 460 hearings and markups. The comparative print, or POSI project, is a third key priority. This technology allows us to create comparisons between current law and what the law would be with the bill's proposed changes. Today, the Rules Committees and House Legislative Council have access to the document comparison tool. Our goal for the end of Phase 3 in August 2020 is to expand the application to a single comparison tool and to expand access to all House staff. Our fourth key priority is personnel development. We continue to evaluate training opportunities for our staff to ensure they align with our mission and goals and to enhance cross-training as employees with specialized skills retire. This initiative gives current employees hands-on experience in highly specialized areas and promotes career growth within the organization. Our aim is to keep exceptional employees motivated by strengthening their current skills and helping them acquire new ones. We have established a thorough training plan to further develop our workforce talent and broaden our institutional memory to be able to promote from within and to ensure personnel transitions do not disrupt our operations. We also will continue to recruit highly qualified new employees from a diverse pool of applicants. We look forward to continuing to carry out our many other important responsibilities as outlined in my written testimony. Thank you for this opportunity, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much. We'll turn to you, Mr. Irving.
Good morning, Chairperson Lofgren, Ranking Member Davis, and members of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity to present the Office of the Sergeant at Arms operational priorities for 2019. It is an honor and a privilege to serve this institution, and I look forward to working with the committee as the year progresses. As noted, although I have submitted my full testimony for the record, I would like to briefly highlight and update the committee on a number of security initiatives for 2019. In the past few years, the Sergeant at Arms, in conjunction with the Capitol Police, has enhanced security services to include screening prior to entry of our buildings, developed and enhanced security focus to assist members in this increased threat environment, expanded security services into district offices and district-based events, and moved the Capitol complex closer to 100% screening by bringing the House office buildings into the secure perimeter. Unfortunately, many members receive threats and direction of interest communications that raise concerns for them, their families, and their staff. In light of these threats and concerning communications, my office interfaces with members' offices seeking security coordination for off-campus events in the Washington, D.C. area, in their districts, or elsewhere across the country. We work with the Capitol Police to provide a level of protective support that is based on threat intelligence and proactive criteria, which may form the basis of an enhanced level of support. Protective services can range from security awareness briefings in the member's district to a request for local law enforcement support for public appearance by the member to deployment to the member's district by the Capitol Police. With regard to district office security, my office continues to build upon the success of our district office security program that was launched in the summer of 2017. Since its inception, the program has assisted 390 district offices with the installation of intrusion detection systems, alarms, cameras, panic buttons, and coordinated local law enforcement support of nearly 450 events and town halls across the country. We've also documented nearly 13,000 outreach interactions with members and their offices. In addition, my office has distributed 386 mail hoods to help protect district staff when opening mail. Focusing on the Capitol complex, we are working toward the implementation of House garage security to ensure full screening into the House office buildings and in line with the Capitol and Senate office buildings. I am pleased to announce that with the assistance of this committee, security screening from all garages will be ready for implementation this year. One of our largest operational initiatives is the Joint Audible Warning System. This is a shared effort with the Capitol Police, the Architect of the Capitol, and the Senate Sergeant at Arms to replace the aging emergency annunciator system introduced as a temporary measure following the events of 9/11. The system components of these pager-like devices located in all D.C. offices are beyond their end-of-life dates. The technology is outdated, the battery components are no longer manufactured, and the system support from the vendor is limited. 17 years after implementation, we are seeking a new, separate, non-cell tower-based system for emergency notifications throughout the house to ensure that emergency voice notifications are transmitted via secure radio frequency to all offices and meeting rooms throughout the campus. As I've noted, a more detailed listing of my operational priorities are provided in my extended testimony, such as replacement of the GSA-rated safes for members to store classified and sensitive information. Thank you again for the opportunity to appear before the committee. I'm so appreciative for the committee's unyielding support and partnership as we strive to maintain the delicate balance between strong security measures and a free and open campus to the Capitol complex. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Mr. Kiko.
Good morning. I thank each of you for the opportunity to present the CAO's priorities, which include improving and expanding upon our customer services, advancing the House's cybersecurity posture and technology support, and modernizing its internal and customer-facing processes. The CAO is the largest House-specific support organization with over 700 employees, which provide a broad spectrum of services. Our employees assist offices with voucher processing, logistics and asset management, technology support, payroll, wellness, child care, etc. The CAO has taken on new responsibilities, such as facilitating the workplace rights training for an estimated 16,000 individuals last year and standing up the new Office of Employee Advocacy and assisting with various analyses of House practices and functions. The services provided by the CAO, old and new, are critical to the House operations and must constantly evolve and improve the needs of members. I recognize that major improvements need to be made with our financial and asset management services. We've been working hard on these. We brought in outside consultants. We've been working with the committee, and I believe there's light at the end of the tunnel. But it's not just these major areas that we must work on. We must continuously improve all our services, make the customer experience better by putting them first, meet their needs, and seek ways to improve our services. The CAO's mission at its 1995 inception was, quote, to constantly and consistently listen to our customers, meet their needs, and seek ways to improve our services. The customers are members. It's simple. The CAO is to listen, deliver, and to improve. And that's exactly what the organization's strategic plan was put into motion, a process to better listen to our customers, deliver the services that they need, and to constantly improve. It's changing the way we approach service delivery. We launched a new business unit. We rolled out professional development training for House staff and did training, as was mentioned, for clerks, House financial systems, etc. We are enhancing House-wide services that save members money, working to expand our technology services and reduce reliance on vendor support. Last Congress, our mailing services team corrected nearly 60 million mailing records for members' offices, saving them $17 million in postage and $18 million in production services. We've responded to the overwhelming demand for food service improvements, and the CAO also has paramount responsibility, as we all know, in protecting the House against malicious actors constantly seeking to gain access to House data. In just 1 month, every month, the CAO blocks an estimated 1.6 billion unauthorized scan, probes, and connections, including 300 to 500 million of cyber attacks, and an average of 12.6 million questionable emails to thwart phishing attacks. In 2018, our cybersecurity office deployed 615,000 patches and 3,000 malicious indicators to over 16,000 network-connected devices on campus. I am paying close attention to the issues raised before the Select Committee on Modernization to ensure the CAO's priorities align with and meet the needs expressed by members, including those related to constituent communications, the adoption of new technologies, compensation trends, and district office support. Technology modernization is one area that the CAO is moving aggressively towards. Our FY20 budget requests funding for a more aggressive cloud strategy. With the committee's support, we will be moving into a cloud-first strategy for all new technology endeavors. And while the House does allow the use of cloud tools and authorize several dozen for use, integrating these tools in the past has been too difficult. I'd like to speed this process along. To help solve this problem, the CAO is considering creating a technology innovation lab where members can test, evaluate, and share innovative technology and ideas. I want to again thank you for presenting the CAO's priorities, and I just want to close out by saying, since I've been a CAO, the process I'm trying to do is member first. Processes that members want, not what is necessarily people in the CAO think is best. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And finally, but not least, Mr. Paczynski.
Good morning. Chairperson Lofgren, Ranking Member Davis, and members of the committee, I am both pleased and honored to appear before you today in my capacity as the Inspector General of the House. I'd like to briefly provide a little bit of background on our office and work before talking about priorities for 2019 and beyond. Our core mission is to conduct audits of the financial and administrative functions of the House. Since the first Inspector General of the House was appointed in 1993, the OIG has worked closely with the House officers and those charged with oversight to improve the operations of the House, reduce inefficiencies, minimize costs, identify and prevent fraud, and mitigate risk. We provide traditional audit service as well as proactive analysis and guidance for improvement through our management advisory services. The priorities for my office are largely driven by those of this committee and the House officers. As new initiatives are undertaken, policies are updated, technology and/or process changes are made, the risks also change. The House will face numerous challenges during the 116th Congress and beyond, some of which we know and others we do not. The OIG will continue to do our part to help the House officers and this committee identify and manage risks wherever they exist. We are dedicated to making the House secure, safe, and more efficient and effective. I believe our independent, data-driven audit and advisory work is critical to both the officers and this committee as you work to prevent issues that could adversely impact the operations of the House and the legislative process. At the direction of this committee and in collaboration with the House officers, we have revamped the audit planning process. This collaborative, transparent process involves discussions of risk, current and planned initiatives, and discussing existing operational challenges. We have these conversations with both the officers as well as the key staff that handle the day-to-day operations. Through our regular meetings with committee staff, we also discuss the concerns and priorities of those with oversight responsibilities. These planning discussions allow us to gather a much more comprehensive view of the House environment and inform our risk assessment process. I believe this communication has also improved coordination between my office, the House officers, and this committee. We have submitted and reviewed our draft 2019 work plan with the committee staff. It is a focused, risk-based audit plan that centers on critical aspects of the House administrative operations, legislative process, and security. I look forward to receiving approval on that plan so we can begin work on these important efforts. For the foreseeable future, it is apparent that cybersecurity and ensuring the resiliency of House systems and infrastructure will continue to be an area of focus. Technology is ever evolving and continues to become much more embedded in all aspects of House operations. While technology offers great efficiencies and can dramatically improve the delivery of information and services, it also expands the number of attack vectors for cyber attacks and creates new risks where even a simple outage can disrupt key services. In addition, the continued evolution of cloud services and applications offers a potentially limitless number of locations where both personal and House data may reside. Being able to quickly deploy and take advantage of new technologies while also ensuring that processes are in place to manage information security is both critical and an immense challenge. Chairperson Lofgren, I wish to thank you, Ranking Member Davis, and members of the committee for the opportunity to appear before you today. I want to assure you that we will continue to provide our unbiased and independent assessment of risk, provide data-driven analysis, and offer practical recommendations to improve the effectiveness and efficiency of House operations. At this time, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you very much, and thanks to all of you, not only for your good work for this institution, but for your testimony today. Now is the time when members of the committee may ask questions of the witnesses, and I'm going to turn first to the gentlelady from California, Ms. Davis.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you for all of you who make the House a better place for those who work here and, of course, those who visit here as well. My question is for Ms. Johnson and Mr. Kiko. I appreciate very much your willingness to work with me on an idea that we've had in my office to modernize the way that we add co-sponsors to bills. As you all know very well, legislative staff and interns are constantly calling and emailing around for co-sponsors and running signed co-sponsor sheets to the Capitol, when in fact they certainly could be doing other, probably more important work. Processing the list of names takes hours of clerk staff time, as the co-sponsor sheets are handwritten and can be easily misread. So there's really no good reason for our co-sponsorship process to be like this in 2019. It's neither efficient nor secure. Considering that there are about 135,000 co-sponsorships every Congress, saving time here could certainly free up many hours of legislative and clerk staff hours. So I propose that we develop a new electronic system that would provide offices with a checklist of bills that they can sign on to, and bill sponsors with a way to collect names and let others know their bills are open for co-sponsors. An online system could increase efficiency and accountability, as there would be an electronic record of authorized staff signing onto bills. Creating such a system would not be difficult, but it certainly would require collaboration between the clerk's office and the CAO's office. So I wonder if each one of you, Ms. Johnson and Mr. Kiko, if you could tell me how you suggest we proceed and how the committee can best support you as we explore this idea. What do you see as the next steps? Ms. Johnson?
I would recommend that we begin talking to the parliamentarian's office to make certain that we don't in any way impose on the integrity of the current system, which I don't see as a problem. We've started talking to our legislative computer people, and they are certain they can develop software to make certain this process is carried out efficiently. I think it's a matter of changing the culture of the members, because they're very accustomed to doing it the old-fashioned manual way. It would certainly benefit the clerk's office. We spend about 5 hours daily, each day that we're in session, between collecting the co-sponsors, calling the offices back to make certain that the names are correct, and even after that, just putting the data into the system of all of the co-sponsors. It's very, very time consuming. The clerk's office prides itself on reliability and efficiency, and so we will look into it and just make certain that nothing is lost in the process.
Thank you. Mr. Kiko, did you want to comment?
We'd be willing to assist the clerk on technology aspects if they need it. I know from my own personal, I guess some of this is just about figuring out a way on your idea just to validate what is currently already happening. Obviously, staff is making calls, putting people on. Maybe that would be really critical to make sure the validation process up front is correct. And so that's how I see it. Having worked on a personal staff before, I can attest to how difficult the process is and how time-consuming it is. So we would be willing to assist the clerk in any way we could.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And Madam Chair, I think I certainly know how much time it takes in our offices. I had no idea how much time it took in the clerk's
Right.
office. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Davis. I turn now to the other Davis on the committee, the ranking member, Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, and hello, Mr. Kiko. How are you today?
I don't know. I'll tell you at the end of this hearing.
I see you brought your entourage back, too.
A
Mr.
couple
Clocker is having flashbacks to his time spent here. Hey, you know, Phil, what do you see as the biggest technology challenges that member offices face right now?
Well, I think that with regards to technology, it has to do with the interface, with sometimes with the finance office on how we interface on voucher processing. I think it has to do with an interface, also just regards to the computer requirements that we have, with regards to the IT requirements that we have. I think that the challenge is basically because there's a tension between security with regards to our whole technology system that we have, and then we have these many devices that members have, and it's not a very centralized function. And I think there's frustration sometimes on the interaction on IT things with regards to the CAO's office and that. That
Okay.
make sense?
Yeah, no, I want to get your opinion on that. You certainly have to listen to mine sometimes. And we did last week. We had a great conversation on the technological backbone of HIR and how do we create more competition within our CMS systems to be able to help get member offices the most up-to-date technology to be able to communicate with our constituents. So I look forward to working with you and your team on those issues. Mr. Kiko, it's my understanding that last year the CAO's finance office was reviewed by an outside consulting firm. What were the recommendations from that study, and when will they be implemented, and most importantly, how are they going to help member offices?
Well, I think the recommendations, there were about 30 recommendations that basically had to do with a lack of written processes for the CAO operation, and they basically took a deep dive into everything we did, and I think that we are to implement the recommendations and the processes. There were several, like two or 300 process recommendations in addition to other recommendations, and we're supposed to have those implemented by the end of this year. And I do think that it will basically tell employees in the various operations what they're supposed to do and how they're supposed to do it, written down rather than just in somebody's head. And this is the way we've always done it.
Okay, and I mentioned the member offices, and you and I and your team have gone through an Office of Finance review process. We updated some of the categories a few years ago. Thank you for your work on that. Obviously, you know my viewpoint is I view the CAO and the Office of Finance as somewhat of an insulation point for members. And I want to make sure you know that this committee, all of us on this committee, are open to working with you to make sure that members don't ask for things that get members in trouble. We want to make sure that you have the tools that you need, and that's why I'm most concerned, and we can talk later. I want to know how these changes are going to help member offices, too.
Right.
Not just help the finance office, because we want to make sure it's not just about voucher times, processing times. It's what's the end result? How are your processes going to make it easier for member offices to work in conjunction with the Office of Finance? So any comment there?
No, I mean, I'm trying on, especially on the voucher processing, on making the processing time shorter.
I understand that, but that shouldn't be our only focus. Voucher processing time is not the only focus.
Right.
That's,
Well, I think overall we're going to have more integrity in the system, and we're going to be able to rely on the system. But we do with regards to the finance audit. We've been doing okay with regards to the auditors, but we need to do better. I agree with regards to how we interface with member offices and to make things better and faster and less bureaucratic.
Thank you. Mr. Irving, thanks for your badge implementation. I don't have enough time, so I got to skip you. Ms. Johnson, quick question. What steps is OHEC taking to proactively reach out and educate members about best practices and workplace rights?
We have a series of training. We're working in conjunction with the CAO's office and training chiefs of staffs, and we also offer trainings to members on workplace rights.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to recognize the gentleman from North Carolina for his questions.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and let me say good morning to all of you, and thank you very much for your testimony here today. You know, in my prior life, I was a judge for some 15 years, and I would show up in Superior Court every Monday morning and have a courtroom full of people and full of defendants and full of lawyers, but I could not do my work without the court personnel. I was useless as a judge, and as members of the Congress, we are I'm not going to say useless, but we are marginalized unless we can have the support of men and women like yourselves. And so I want to thank you very much for the incredible work that you do on behalf of all of us. And not just you. You're at the top of the chain, but you have many, many people who work with you and for you who give of themselves every day. And I just want to ask you to extend to them our appreciation for all the work that they do. This is pretty serious work that we do here in Washington. We all know that. The Sergeant at Arms, I have really developed an appreciation for the incredible role that your office plays in the life of members of Congress. I'm not sure the newer members of Congress really understand and appreciate the depth of the work of the Sergeant at Arms, and hopefully as the years go on, they will develop an appreciation for it, as I have done. I'm always looking for ways to increase member security without being ridiculous, and there's a fine balance between that. You know, whenever members have an emergency in their lives, and we've known some over the last few years, we become very attuned to the risk that we face. But as time goes on, that kind of wanes, and we kind of relax. Many of us are from rural communities. I have 14 counties in my district. Some are urban, some are rural, and I find myself from time to time on back roads late at night, all alone. Sometimes with staff, sometimes without staff. Sometimes the cell phone works, and sometimes it doesn't work. I guess what I need to ask you, is there technology in place where you can locate a member if there's an emergency? I know the technology exists. I mean, right on our phones, we can enable our devices to allow designated people to know where we are. And if we were to call you in an emergency, would you be able to, I know the police can do it as well. Can you identify where we are?
Congressman, it's a great question. The technology does exist. We do have a system in place. It is a matter of us working closely with the individual member so the member is okay with us tracking their movements. That's the key, is the member authorizing us to...
Do members know that? Do members know that capacity exists, that technology exists? Because I'd be delighted for the Sergeant at Arms and the Capitol Police to be able to know my location in case of an emergency.
It certainly is an ongoing education to the members. I will say that members all have cell phones, or most have cell phones, and with those cell phones we can track, and we do have everyone's contact information. So we do have the ability to certainly track them. Again, it's just a matter of ensuring that they are okay with that service.
But please, and I know you're going to do this, but please continue to remind members of the incredible security risk that all of us face every day. And I think we heard from one of the other gentlemen about the hackers and the thousands and thousands of attempts are being made every hour, I suspect, of people trying to infiltrate the workings of the House. To Mr. Kiko, I didn't realize the severity of the bad actors, and I guess they're not just domestic, they're international as well, who are constantly trying to hack into our systems. Would you repeat that data again? I was caught by surprise. I knew it was a serious problem, but I didn't know the magnitude of the problem.
Well, in just 1 month, I'll read my statement.
Yes.
The CAO blocks an estimated 1.6 billion
Were you saying
unauthorized
billion,
Yeah.
Billion?
probes, scans and connections, and 300 to 500 million cyber attacks each month. Now, you know, on the
Is the
first,
trend line increasing, or is it flat?
it's increasing.
It's increasing by the year.
It's increasing. It's getting more intense. The actors are getting more sophisticated, and so you know the trick is for the CAO to stay ahead. You know, we try to stay ahead of the curve. We have a lot of ways to try to block things from coming in.
And I would suspect your office interfaces with the CIA and the FBI and the
Yeah,
others,
we interface with all the law enforcement
law-
agencies. Correct.
even at the state level.
At the state level, if we need to, yes.
Okay. In your testimony to the Legislative Branch Appropriations Subcommittee, you mentioned that $2 million in savings was realized from district office upgrades. Is that accurate?
Yes, it has to do with the technology for VoIP, and replacing it, not replacing VoIP, but having a better, cheaper system in district offices than what they have. And we've been working our way through that with new members. So overall, it has been a cheaper system.
Again, thank all of you for your incredible work. I yield back.
Thank you. The gentleman from Georgia is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate all of you, what you're doing, and the time you're spending with us today. Security, Mr. Irving's been a key issue, I mean, for your office, especially over the past few years, and we've had even some classified briefings on the increased security threats. Many of us have lived through some of those. You and I like you, but I never wanted to spend this much time with you on an official basis. But a couple of questions. I remember not long after the baseball shooting that Mr. Davis and I were out there on the field with, is that policy was changed apparently where if there was a significant number of members together that we were going to get security. Are we still doing that?
Yes, absolutely.
What is there a magic number or formula that we use for that, or?
No, we ask members to let us know when they're off campus
Okay.
and let us make the determination. But frankly, I would rather know when members are off campus and make that decision.
Okay. All right. You also mentioned that you're enhancing local security back in the districts for different events and coordinating with law enforcement, and you mentioned even having Capitol Police potentially come. What is the trigger mechanism to determine when you're going to bring a Capitol Police officer in the district?
A host of factors. We first will solicit local law enforcement support. They're the ones who can respond the quickest and have the most assets in district.
Right.
And if we feel comfortable with local law enforcement support, we'll leave it at that. If for some reason local law enforcement cannot support the member event, then I will authorize the Capitol Police to deploy to the district. Again, depending on the event and whether I see the risk is such that we need to send additional law enforcement.
Okay. The other question is regarding the implementation of the enhanced screening in the parking lot. This is going to be done this year, or in the parking areas. What changes will we see operationally for us? I mean, would that put us in a situation where access to the Capitol is more like it is in the Senate, or will we have fewer areas of ingress into the building from the parking areas? If you could just kind of touch on what changes we would see after this is implemented.
Yeah, the real positive change I see is that the screening on the House side will be similar, almost identical to what we see on the Senate side, which is no magnetometer screening from the Capitol to the Senate office buildings. So I foresee a day where there's no magnetometer screening and a much more free flow of staff. Members obviously bypass the magnetometers, but much more of a free flow of staff that are many times with the member from the House office buildings to the Capitol. Now, on the House office building side, there would be some business process change. As staff enter the garages, we will ask them to be screened at that point, similar to them screening from the street. Now, all pedestrians coming into the House office buildings will be screened, and that will, again, alleviate the concern of additional screening into the Capitol.
So staff-led tours would not have to go through the magnetometer in the Cannon Tunnel per se?
Technically correct.
Okay, thank you. I think that'll be a great enhancement. Mr. Kiko, you and I have discussed this in the past, and just wanted to ask, and Mr. Irving can weigh into if it's an area of concern there. And mine is dealing with the district offices and cybersecurity, not district offices, but members' home offices and cybersecurity. I see, coming from the IT background, that one area of weakness is just someone at home goes to Walmart or any other business and buys a off-the-shelf router that the password is password. They put it on with their cable system, and all of a sudden now somebody driving down the road can get into their local network. Is that something that's being addressed? That is there something to look at best practices or some training of how to best secure your homes?
Well, I would say that all the practices that we ask members to do here on campus are applicable to what you do at home. You know, whether it's changing passwords, you know, we will sit down and talk to you about how to best do that. We have done that with other members. We are going to have some kind of a fair coming up, I think, in a couple of weeks, and I'll send that out, where it's basically a bunch of people in the cyber world meeting with member offices on this particular issue. It's members, you know, their offices and these kind of things. So, but it's basically the same practices that we try to do here, but it is more difficult with regards to what you do at home.
Madam Chair.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I saw the
Follow up.
Inspector General was nodding his head. I didn't know if you had maybe some comments on that as well.
I'd agree. The practices that are in place here at the House would be wholly applicable to members working from home or from their offices. Some of the tool sets that if they're using VPN technology to get in, there's some degree of security that goes in there, but also on the back end, those threats that the Chief Administrative Officer blocks all the time, they come from a variety of sources, and now we have many more endpoints than we used to, and IP-enabled devices, so it's just my advice to members would be cautious anywhere you are. If you're in a hotel, if you're at home working, there really aren't safe locations to do your work.
Thank you.
I mean, I just want to say one thing. One of the biggest areas that we have where computers are ruined is people opening up fishing, and that would be one thing at home, which is hard to do because you get so much. But that would be the first one. If you don't know who's sending it, don't open it up. Yeah.
Thank you. The gentleman from Maryland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Kika, let me start with you. It was a pleasure visiting with you the other day. I want to follow up on Mr. Butterfield's question about the numbers of cyber intrusions and attacks we're fending off every day. I was also staggered by those numbers. I just couldn't believe, you know, we're dealing with hundreds of millions or billions of attempts a year. My question is, are we just playing defense on that? In other words, are we just trying to screen them out, or do we actually go after the people who are doing it in an attempt to prosecute cases and figure out where it's coming from?
Well, we're in constant communication with law enforcement agencies on this. As was indicated earlier, a lot of these are from nation states, and so that presents a different scenario and different complications with regards to that. But some of it is just, you know, when they do the probes and they do the scans, and then they'll see where some vulnerabilities are, then they'll try to do the probe, and then they'll try to get in. So this is sort of a constant kind of thing. So we do work with law enforcement where we can, but a lot of it is just, you know,
Yeah.
it's so hard. A lot of it starts in the dark web, and, you know, it's just hard.
You've described in your testimony the CIO's efforts to expand access to cloud services like Microsoft Office 365, which would allow members to access email and Word documents, Excel spreadsheets, other members, and so on, all by using a House-issued device. And we obviously use a lot of PDF documents here in the House. That is the standard file format for final legislative text, for constituent casework. Is there a CAO effort underway to examine the feasibility of house-wide access to cloud services that will support PDF documents?
I'd have to check on that. Hold on. The answer is yes.
Good, okay. Because I think that would...
We'll follow up with you on that. But
It would make our lives a lot easier. Thank you very much. Ms. Johnson, let me come to you. Do you have the resources and personnel in place to achieve all the goals of your office that you have developed?
At this time, I do. I certainly have the resources in place. My concern is that this area is just such a competitive technological area, and I concern myself with our salaries being able to keep up with IT salaries in the area, and particularly with the oncoming of Amazon in the area. About a fourth of the clerk's office work staff is IT, and so I'm just concerned about the competitive salaries.
Gotcha. Okay, well, that's something that we'll keep our eye on too then. And is it true that you are a resident of Maryland's 8th Congressional District?
You are my congressman.
Well, that's wonderful. Well, a special welcome to you. I've got just a final question for Mr. Irving. A couple questions. One, what is the significance of pre-screening members, staff, and visitors to the Capitol complex, Mr. Irving?
We employ the concept of pre-screening to attempt to encounter in a problem outside, as far outside an office building as possible. We don't want the security issue to be inside. And if our pre-screeners can identify a problem and hopefully neutralize a problem outside, we feel it puts us at a far advantage versus, again, inside the an existing secure perimeter.
I got you. So you have procedures in place for the pre-screening process?
Yes, and we do this because the campus is so open. We really attempt to balance the openness of the campus with security, and one way to put the advantage on our side with such an open campus is to push out our security to be able to identify things before they get to us.
Okay. And finally, Mr. Irving, I think I raised this with you when you were kind enough to drop by my office. Those of us who are on the House Admin Committee have two sets of constituents. One is our constituents back home, and then by virtue of being on the House Admin Committee, our colleagues become constituents in a way. And so I wanted to ask your help with a recurring constituent complaint I've gotten from some of my colleagues, and this is just about the hours of the House garages, specifically the Cannon garage, where I've heard a number of members say they could be waiting 15 or 20 minutes before they leave because they've got to go radio and ask someone else to come over. And I'm just wondering whether we could work on extending the hours of the House garages for members who work late. I mean, it seems to me like midnight would be a reasonable time to go. A lot of members, will be here for for dinner meetings and events and late night caucuses and so on. And I just wonder whether that's something we might be able to explore.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll certainly look into it. We end up really balancing the number of members utilizing those doors with the cost for the Capitol Police to staff them. But having said that, we want to make sure that every member has access to the garage when they need it. So I commit to working with you on that, and I promise I'll follow up.
Thank you very much. I yield back, Madam Chair.
The gentlelady from Ohio is recognized.
Good morning. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you, Madam Chair. As I've read and listened to your testimony, I really do see some commonality of purpose between your various offices, especially as it relates to systems. You're concerned about your security of the system and the efficiency of the system. Do you all ever talk to each other about your systems because maybe they could work together better?
we have frequent meetings
That's
all
great.
the time among the officers and frequent meetings with the IG.
So the four of you get together on a regular basis.
We do talk.
That's great to hear. Just for each of you, what are the top 2 things that you would like to make sure you accomplish by the end of this Congress? And what do you see as the priority and vision for your offices for the next 5 years?
I'll go first, and I would say one of the top priorities is just to continue to recruit the best and the brightest staff from a very diverse pool of highly qualified applicants, and we are working whenever we have an opening. We're certainly consulting with the new House Inclusion and Diversity Officer, as well as working with minority-serving institutions and HBCUs. So number one is just, again, to have the best talent available and to recruit and retain that talent. And again, secondly, I would say just being able to be competitive with salaries. I'm just afraid people are not going to stay unless they are paid a good wage for this area. Thank you.
I would say my 2 biggest priorities at the short term for this year would be the garage security project to ensure that our house office buildings are within the secure perimeter, and the second would be to finish our joint emergency warning system to ensure that we have true redundant communications in the case of an emergency and we need to evacuate the premises or tell members to go some other place other than their office. In the next 5 years, I would focus on the districts and try to be more consistent with our protocols in the districts. As Mr. Butterfield indicated, I'd like to ensure better coordination with all members with regard to the tools we have at our disposal to keep them safe and ensure that members take advantage of all of those tools.
Would that include continuing to put resources in our MRA for security in our district offices?
That would be one, but I don't want to overspeak on that,
Right.
but yes.
Thank you.
I would say that my biggest priority is to we started a strategic plan a year ago, and it's about customer, process, stewardship, and employee, and if it's successful, it will basically transform how delivery of services are made to members. It'll be faster, it'll be better, and so that's sort of what my focus is as far as in the next 2 years and beyond. I don't want to just deal with what's in front of me. I want to have the CAO's office, let's say at the end of this Congress, is to where it should be for the next 10 years, you know, and the other one is a focus on professional and engaged CAO employees, development of employees, training employees, upward mobility of employees. It has to do with that.
Thank you.
Congressman, from my perspective, near term, some of the things that we're looking at or planning to look at have to do with technology resiliency and disaster recovery. It's an area that with the amount of change and new technologies being brought into play, making sure that we're helping validate that the house is as resilient as it needs to be, that in case something bad were to happen, be it natural or outside. I think longer term, I share some of the same concerns as the House officers, and that's making sure that the House, that we can get the talent that we need for our positions. As the clerk noted, with Amazon moving across the river, again, an additional force that we'll be competing with for talent, and particularly in technology areas, making sure that that we bring in the right people and can retain them and train them. I think that's a longer term issue that we're going to have to continue to address, but one that is, I think, going to become very, very important.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Just a couple of closeout questions. First, thank you all for your testimony and for what you've done here today. Looking at what the House institutionally has to offer members and what members understand about that is sometimes disconcerting. And when I think about HIR technology partners, I think only has about 30 member offices, if I've been told correctly, and yet I've used it as a very efficient service, and members are spending money needlessly for outside vendors. So I guess the question, Mr. Kiko, is how aggressively are we marketing, I guess, is that the right word, to member offices, the IT service support? Are there cybersecurity benefits to having more member offices supported exclusively by the HIR technology partners? And if so, what are we doing to increase the uptake?
Well, we do have a marketing team, and we are going to be marketing those kind of services. I think that in the past, some of those services have not been very well received, and I'm not going to judge that, but you know, once you get off on the wrong foot, sometimes it's basically hard to dig yourself out. So what we're trying to do is increase, you know, the training, increase the people that we hire, increase how they interact with member offices, and we're pitching the service with the customer advocates, you know, that we've hired that circulate around the member offices. So I'm sort of hoping the combination of all those will be better, because I think from a security perspective, we would prefer that our people be working on the system.
I would love to work with you on that, and sometimes members can market to other members, but if we're going to do that, I think we're going to need to incorporate the feedback to members and then to you for corrections if there are things that people are unhappy with. You only get one chance to make a first impression.
That's right.
So you know, again, on the cyber issue, our policy is that critical updates have to be installed within 10 days, which I think is actually a pretty long, too long a time, and that non-compliance will result in disconnection from the house network. That's, I think, our policy. Has that been enforced? And if so, how quickly, and what has been the feedback?
Well, I think that I would have to defer, you know, on this, but it's my impression from what I know that it's sometimes we try to enforce those kind of policies, but sometimes it's very difficult to enforce policies, especially dealing with a bunch of member offices, and there's a lot of non-compliance. And so what we're trying to do on some of this stuff is, if we move into the cloud, we can automatically
You do it yourself.
do it ourselves, and then that takes that off the table.
I'm going to follow up on an issue we've been working with you on. The National Institute of Standards and Technology is the gold standard on technology in the federal government, and they apparently have suggested that instead of changing passwords constantly, it would be better to have an extremely long and complicated and secure password that is not necessarily changed a lot. And you can go into any office and you'll find by the member's computer the password written down because they can't remember it. I think, you know, human behavior being such, and if you we've been looking to move to that. Where are we on that?
Well, I think recently we've changed, you know, the passwords to 6 characters, and you're only going to have to change them once a year. And once we implement the multi-factor, you know, in the next couple of months with regards to mobile devices, and once we move it, you know, at the end of the year, so everybody can access it from their mobile devices and their desktop, I think that you could have that long password at the beginning when you enter it in, but then after that, you're not going to have that. That would be the way to go. But we could engage you further on that.
That would be great. And it's one of the things that members complain about, constantly changing it, and really because of human behavior, you end up with a less secure system because of people, you know, sending emails with password as the
Correct.
tagline. Mr. Paczynski, in your answer to one of the questions, I think it was, what is your kind of work effort for the coming year? You talked about the IT strategies. When was the last time the Inspector General did an IT analysis of the House? And do you think that's something that would help us improve our IT landscape?
We're constantly looking at various aspects of IT, within all the House officer organizations. With Mr. Kiko and his organization, we spend a lot of time with HIR. So I'm not sure if you mean holistically how we handle IT or what aspect you may be concerned with, but I'm more than open to working with you and the staff to, if there are some specific concerns or areas, we can definitely
Right.
look into those.
I'll just close with this. Rather than get the answer here today, I'm wondering if I could ask you to submit to us your progress on diversity in hiring, what your plan is. As you know, we're establishing a diversity office here in House administration, but one of the things we want to make sure is that, you know, the employees of the House look like America, and that we've made every effort to make sure that we have an excellent and diverse workforce. And so if you could offline submit what you're currently doing, what your plans are in that regard, it would be greatly appreciated, and then we'll have an opportunity to have a further dialogue. And with that, I see I'm the only member of the committee left, so I will thank you for being here today and note that we will adjourn. Thank you.